Hello, I'm Rob Witcher, and I'm here to help you pass the CISSP exam. I'm going to walk you through a review of the major topics in Domain 6, specifically focusing on logging and monitoring. This is the third of 3 MindMap videos for Domain 6. I've included links to the other MindMap videos in the description below. Logging events from multiple systems, aggregating the data, and analyzing the data, essentially logging and monitoring, is an important part of security assessment. Where can we collect logging data from across the organization? The answer is essentially everywhere. Almost every system can generate log event data. Network devices like firewalls, routers, and switches, IDS and IPS systems, intrusion detection and intrusion prevention systems, servers, desktops, laptops, operating systems, applications, anti-malware, databases, etc., etc., etc. We must be selective though. Many systems are capable of generating an avalanche of event data. So we need to configure systems to only log what is relevant. We also need the capability to review all the logging event data that is being generated, ideally as close to real time as possible. It's not super ideal to review your logs and realize you've had a significant breach months after it's occurred. And what are we looking for when we analyze the logs? Errors and anomalies. What specifically are we monitoring for? Errors. If we see, for example, our web server is generating many error 404 file not found messages, this is a clear indication that something is broken and needs to be fixed on the web server. Modifications. More specifically, unauthorized modifications. It is not uncommon for attackers to exploit a vulnerability to break into a system and then patch that vulnerability behind themselves after they've installed something like a backdoor. Therefore, looking for unauthorized patching of a system may be a good indication of a breach. And of course, from a security perspective, one of the main things we're monitoring for is if any of our systems have been breached, being used for cryptocurrency mining, or data exfiltration is occurring, or if we're about to have a bad time with ransomware. As I mentioned, one of the major challenges is the plethora of devices and systems that can generate log data across an organization and the volume of event data that they can produce. It is very much the challenge of looking for a needle in a haystack. Accordingly, we need to use systems that automate many of the tasks and analysis required for logging and monitoring. These systems are commonly referred to as SIEMs, Security Information and Event Management Systems. Before we can begin feeding data into a SIEM, we first need to enable logging on devices across the environment so that we're generating the log data. Something we have to be careful about though is limiting log file sizes on these endpoint devices such as firewalls, routers, switches. Many of these devices can generate a lot of data but have very limited onboard storage to store this log data. We therefore need a couple of methods to limit log file sizes. Circular overwrite is the idea that you set a maximum log file size, say 10 megabytes or 10,000 lines, and then you begin writing log event data. When the system reaches the maximum size, say 10 megabytes or 10,000 lines, it'll circle back to the top of the log file and begin overwriting until it reaches the max file size again and circles back yet again to the top and begins overwriting. Rinse and repeat. Clipping levels are about setting a threshold. Below the threshold, log nothing. Above the threshold, begin logging. For example, we typically don't care about 1 or 2 failed logins. We all mistype our password occasionally. But 10 failed login attempts in quick succession, or 50 or 10,000, we definitely care about that. Someone's trying to brute force a password. So we could set the threshold at say 3 failed login attempts. Below 3, nothing is logged. 3 or more, we log it. And by the way, which is more useful if you're looking to investigate a breach? Circular overwrite or clipping levels? And the answer is clipping levels, because you're not ever overwriting any of your log data. Another important consideration when generating log data is the timestamps for each log event. We need consistent timestamps. We need timestamps in the same format, say year, month, day, and 24-hour clock. This way we can more easily correlate events between different systems because they have consistent timestamps. We also need the clocks in all of our systems across the environment to be synchronized. It is very difficult to trace how an attacker traversed a network, for instance, if one system's clock is 3 seconds slower and another is 5 seconds faster, and another's date is sent in 1979. There's a protocol we can use to synchronize all of our system clocks, NTP, network time protocol. When a log event is generated on any device in the environment, we transmit that data in real time to our SIEM system. So transmission is about not only keeping a copy of the log on the local device, but also replicating, creating a copy of that log and transmitting it to our SIEM system. Our SIEM system collects and aggregates all this event data from across the environment into one central system. Next, the SIEM system will normalize the data, clean up the event data from disparate devices so that all the data, the variables are complete and in the same format. It does this so that the next step, analysis, can now analyze all the event data that is pouring in to look for that proverbial needle in the haystack. The SIEM system will apply various analysis techniques, such as event correlations, statistical models, rules, etc., to look for errors and anomalies. SIEM systems are also used to retain logged event data for long periods of time, to enable longitudinal analysis and tracking, and to meet contractual or regulatory requirements for log retention. And finally, when event data no longer needs to be retained, it can be securely and defensively destroyed. Continuous monitoring, or sometimes referred to as continuous security monitoring, is the process where an organization identifies all their systems, identifies the risks associated with each system, applies the appropriate controls to mitigate the risks, and then continuously monitors the controls to assess their effectiveness against the ever-changing threat landscape. And that is an overview of logging and monitoring from a security perspective. If you found this video helpful, you can hit the thumbs up button. And if you want to be notified when we release additional videos in this MindMap series, then please subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notifications. I'll provide links to the other MindMap videos in the description below. Thanks very much for watching, and all the best in your studies.